This podcast is also sponsored by Kadan Kadan. Kadan Kadan is a new groupage app that allows you to share space within a shipping container so that you can save costs when it comes to your logistics and transportation. Visit kadankadan.com to learn more, or visit the Instagram page Kadan Kadan Official. Okay, hello and good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. This is Malobi from the Kadan Kadan podcast. And today we have Uzo from Loom Chocolate. And anyone that's in Nigeria has probably seen this amazing chocolate brand with a beautiful packaging and many different flavors. And so I'm so excited to speak with such a pioneering individual in the sort of agribusiness space. So Uzo, am I pronouncing it right? Is it Uzo or Uzo, or how do I say it?
Uzo.
Uzo, fantastic. I thought so. Good morning. How are you doing today?
I'm very well, thank you.
Fantastic. Okay, so first things first, can you just introduce yourself? You know, where are you from, and where are you based right now, and what do you do? What's Loom Chocolate?
Okay, so my name is Uzoamaka Igweike, and I'm the founder of Loom Chocolate. We are cocoa bean processors based in Abuja. Where am I from? I'm from Anambra State, southeastern Nigeria, and yeah.
Fantastic. And your brand Loom Chocolate, what does the loom mean actually? Is it like heirloom or what's that mean?
Spot on. It's from the word heirloom, and that's just the way I viewed Nigerian cocoa. But we decided to shorten it to loom because there's actually a kind of cocoa that is designated as heirloom cocoa. So I didn't want to create any confusion and mislead people into thinking that, our chocolate was made from heirloom cocoa. So no, our chocolate is not made from heirloom cocoa, but, we shortened it not to create that confusion.
Just for the audience listening, what does heirloom actually mean? What does it imply?
It's basically like you would typically use it to describe some sort of jewel that has basically been handed down from generation to generation along a family line. And I feel like cocoa has been around for a very long time and is a jewel of sorts that even though we in Nigeria don't really appreciate it, the idea of calling the chocolate heirloom chocolate was to bring that attention back to something that we're supposed to consider precious, and worth taking care of, worth cultivating, worth growing.
Okay, fantastic. Thanks for that definition. So let's get into it. You have a chocolate brand, you process cocoa beans. So what made you actually decide to get into, first of all, the chocolate value chain, let alone to start processing the cocoa as opposed to exporting the raw material as everyone else does?
Okay, so I was basically trying to solve a problem for myself, because when I started experimenting with cocoa to make chocolate, I had a baking business, like a side small baking business that I was running at the time, and I found it really hard to get good quality chocolate, and I liked working with chocolate, so it was really difficult. And when you actually found the chocolate, it was really expensive, and it didn't quite make any sense to me. So I wanted to solve that problem and have access to good quality chocolate whenever I wanted, whatever quantities. We produce a lot of cocoa in Nigeria. Nigeria is the fourth or fifth largest producer of cocoa in the world, and I found it hard to reconcile that we didn't have access. I remember then living in Lagos, the Cadbury factory that's in Ikeja.
Mm-hmm.
Always wonder, what do they do there? And it turns out that it's just buttermint, Tom-Tom, Bonvita, no chocolate, and it didn't make sense, right? So I Googled how to make chocolate at home, right? And I found out that it wasn't as hard as one may think. And really, that's how I got started.
Wow, wow. But I can imagine, even though you say it wasn't as hard as you thought, how was those first, trials? Was it like difficult? Was it frustrating? Do you make a lot of mistakes? Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, so I think starting is actually the most difficult part of it. Starting is the most difficult part of it. But I was lucky in that, of course, we had access to all the ingredients. When, after my research, I found out that really to make chocolate, you need just cocoa and sugar, nothing else. And I was lucky enough to have a colleague who had like a family member that was into cocoa, and they were all excited. I remember in my office that when I told them I would start making chocolate, they were excited and looking for ways to help out. So he introduced me to somebody. I'm the very first 20 kg of cocoa that I used. It was given to me free of charge because people were really supportive. They wanted to see where I would take it to. So I got the cocoa. I had the sugar. I looked around for the tools, was able to improvise for some. I had everything I needed to make the chocolate, but I just couldn't start. So I started reaching out to other chocolate makers that I found online that, what do I do? What do I do? But, I didn't really get much help from them, right? But one of them told me something. She just said, just start. Just start. And I told myself, because I'd been chasing them for weeks, please, can you tell me what do I do first? Is this correct? You're afraid of making a mistake. But if you're doing something for the first time, you already have an excuse to fail. It's your first time. And, if you fail, it's not such a big deal. You can get up and try again. So when she said, just start, initially I was like, why would you just tell me what to do? But I was like, okay, yes, just start. And I also went ahead and roasted the beans. After I just put the beans in the oven, right? And I started getting that brownie smell, which is what all the resources that read up, had said, that you would smell something like brownies, and the beans are okay. They will start popping. The kitchen will be smell so delicious. So after I just, overcame that first fear and put the beans in the oven, roasted it, got to that point where the beans were popping and, I could smell the brownies. That was all I needed. It's just like you're just crossing a threshold, and after that, you're kind of unstoppable. Yeah, so that's just it. So the first step is always a difficult step, but you find out that any challenge that you face along the way, you're able to overcome it just because you're able to take that first step. So that was it for me, really. So I roasted the bean, made the chocolate, and it was grainy. I mean, I molded the chocolate. It was grainy. There's a step, if you remember, there's a step called tempering, where cocoa butter fat it's sort of arranged. The structure is in a way that the bonds are tight, right? And you get that snap when you break into it. But my first 2 tries at making chocolates, right, the results were always so grainy. When I gave people to taste, like, well, it's so crumbly, but it tastes like chocolate. It's just so crumbly, but it's crumbly, but it tastes like chocolate. So, but on the 3rd try, I was able to get chocolate that, could actually snap, it was shiny on the surface. I just knew that, the major challenge, or some of the major challenges had been resolved. Yeah.
Wow, that's so interesting. And I'm sure your colleagues that were like, cheering you on at the start, they're very proud of you and like, are they, right? Exactly. So that's beautiful. That's beautiful to see. And I love the fact that you just decided to start like the person did. You didn't necessarily wait for the perfect moments. You just decided to start doing it. So did you actually attend any online workshops, or did you pay a consultant at any point, or was it purely just 100% you just taking in resources online and just doing it yourself?
Yeah, so I couldn't, then I couldn't even afford to, pay anybody, right? And yeah, so to answer your question, yes, I did it by myself. But, when I say by myself, it would be unfair not to mention all the people that were kind enough to share their resources online. So I relied a lot on blogs, YouTube videos. If you do something, it doesn't look like, what it should be, you check out blogs to see what you're doing wrong and, make another attempt to correct it. So it's because of those online resources that I was able to, get by without, paying some really, really exorbitant. I almost went, at some point I almost went to Ghana. I was like, I felt like I needed like proper training, to go to a chocolate factory to see what it's like. But by the time I calculated the cost, it was just so high. But then again, I never talk about, how Loom Craft Chocolate started without mentioning the Tony Elumelu Foundation, right? Because the grants that I was given at that point it gave me some freedom, right? Some relief, let me put it that way. Because when you have grant money to spend, you can afford to experiment, and you can only get better through experimentation, right? You can only test those theories that you have in your mind if you have the resources to fund the experiments. And, making chocolates in the African setting is completely different from making it in, maybe if you're in the global north or in a temperate region, for example. And for you to be able to test the theories that you have in your head, you need funding, right? You need some source. So I was lucky that, at that time when I was doing all this experimentation, the Tony Elumelu Foundation was also calling for applications from entrepreneurs for grants. So I pitched the idea and was lucky enough to be awarded the grants. So with that, I was able to buy those melangas. The melangas, or the refiners, actually grind down the cocoa beans into chocolates. You saw them when we did the workshop, right? So yeah, so they're not like cheap equipment, right? And even the transportation costs and everything makes it really, really restrictive. But because I had access to the grant, I was able to experiment, make mistakes freely. Because if you don't have the resources, when you're doing something, I can't waste this because I don't know when I'm going to afford to buy it again. But if you have those resources, if you have a grant or funding of some sort, you're able to, fail with confidence. And it's through failing that we learn. So
wow, that's beautiful. And I love the fact that, you didn't, again, it's because there's a lot of people in similar situations. They want to add value, they want to process, but they're thinking, oh, but I just don't know how to do this, and I need to just save up money and then pay an expert to teach me how to do this. But it's just by, like you said, you fail, you learn, you pivot, you try different things, and it's a great thing that the Tony Elumelu Foundation exists for that purpose. So can you also tell us, like, how many times did you apply to the Elumelu Foundation, and did you just apply the first time and they accepted it, or was it multiple attempts?
Okay, so it was the second time. So I got second attempt, but there were actually two different business ideas. The first time I pitched something for my baking business, and remember that baking business is even how I got into chocolate in the first place, because I was looking for chocolates to bake my cakes with and decorate my cakes with. That's why I started exploring chocolate in the first place. But the first time I pitched my baking business and I didn't get it, right? But the second time I applied, and it's so funny, right? Because when I pitched my baking business, I had a baking business, right? I had products, I had an idea, and things were not an idea per se. I had a product that was already in the market and everything, but I didn't get it. But on the second try, I didn't have a product. I never made chocolate, nothing, just an idea. And that's when I got it, right?
Wow.
So I mean, there's a lesson there, right? That's why I put it that in that even if you haven't done anything, if you have a great idea, then you can always put it forward and see what comes of it.
Wow, that's very true. That's very true. I'm sure the people taking the application saw the innovation and saw that you're doing something really interesting there. Okay. So I wanted to talk about about the sort of cocoa value chain. If you're really just focused on the chocolate side and you don't know much about the rest, that's fine. But I remember going to a trade show and I spoke to a guy that exports like cocoa powder, cocoa butter, and he was telling me that the Nigerian stuff is a lot more expensive because we don't have like price fixing like they do in Ghana and the Ivory Coast. Do you know much about that? I mean, do you agree that our cocoa beans are more expensive than other countries?
Yes, I mean, it is more expensive than other countries because, again, they have regulators in Ghana and Cote d'Ivoire. So they have like what I would call the cocoa board that regulates and fixes the pricing for, the cocoa in those countries. But in Nigeria, we don't have any such thing. And, being expensive or cheap also depends on the point of view you're speaking from. For us as chocolate makers, right, you can't even afford not to be involved in the cocoa farming itself. That aspect, that
wow.
You can't afford that, because if you're going to make quality chocolate, good quality chocolate, you just need good quality beans, right? And because our farmers in Nigeria are not necessarily used to post-processing cocoa for chocolate making, there are some steps that are really critical to good flavor, good quality that are skipped. So you need to work very closely with the farmers that you're sourcing from to make sure that these post-harvest processing activities are carried out in the right way at the right time, are carried out perfectly to standard, right? And it takes more time, it takes more effort to do this post-harvest processing in a way that gives you good quality beans for chocolate. And for that, you're saying that it's expensive compared to Cote d'Ivoire and Ghana. It's even more expensive if you're making chocolate in Nigeria, because you would now have them to spend, cause them to spend maybe more time, more days in fermentation and drying so that you get what you want. So you can imagine. So we pay up to 30% more than the local going rates, and sometimes up to 50% more than the export rates, because of the extra work they have to do to give you the quality of beans that you want. So absolutely, yes, it's more expensive in Nigeria and even more expensive for the Nigerian chocolate maker.
Wow. Okay, right. So that then leads me on to like, okay, how do we make it more affordable? I mean, it sounds like, in order to get the good quality beans, you can't avoid putting in more effort and stuff. But like, is it something that the government or the private sector can come in to do to bring that upstream side of the business and make it a lot cheaper for you?
I don't think like making it cheaper is the answer, right? Because there has to be some sort of equity across board, even for the farmers themselves. So they are putting in a lot of the work, right? Without them, we won't be talking chocolate. Without cocoa, you can't be talking chocolate. And without them, you can't talk cocoa in the first place. So I think that effort needs to be put in, both from the government side and from also the private sector. The government can come in by, providing inputs like seedlings that are healthy, seedlings that are sturdy, let me put it that way. And, they can subsidize what they call it, like fertilizers, and also push them towards more sustainable practices for agriculture, more environmentally friendly practices for agriculture, and move, offer trainings that move farmers and incentives that move them more towards organic farming than fertilizers, because in the long run, we are doing ourselves a disservice as we continue to use chemical fertilizers. So there needs to be some way to encourage organic farming, and it is possible for you to do it at a larger scale, at the scale at which farmers are. Because if you think about it, we have about 350,000 smallholder farmers. And the keyword there is smallholder, in that you would have them farming maybe about 1 hectare of land, 1 to 2 hectares of land. And, it's not like big mechanized farming, right? So I feel like because they have, they're smallholder farmers, organic, sustainable practices are more feasible, right? So I feel like that's where the government can come in. And then the private sector can also come in by providing some sort of knowledge transfer, some sort of training that helps them understand what the generally acceptable practices are for post-harvest processing, right? For example, if you talk about fermentation, if you talk about drying, what's the best way to do it? Because we eventually, it's to our own benefit if we can. NEPA has done its thing. You want us to continue? I get power.
No, I don't know. I think you can go on. I don't know.
Okay. So
Yeah.
I was saying that we can come in. Let me put on the lights from my laptop. Okay, we can come in by doing this knowledge transfer, and even in some cases, like we are planning to do for the farmers that we work with, providing them some of the tools that they need to do this post-processing appropriately or correctly. You get, so that's where we can come in to help. And up NEPA. So it's not just about reducing the. I don't think the solution is in making cocoa cheaper. The solution is in providing the farmers with the correct resources they need to up their quality, right? So that even they can be compensated appropriately. There was this study that was done that calculated the amount of value that accrues to the farmer from a chocolate bar, and it's just 6%. Just 6%. And the bulk of it lies where the processing is done, where the actual sales are done, you get. So we need to find a way to pull that value, a decent percentage of that value back to the farmers, right? I think that's where we should be focused on, both government and private sector.
Well said. Yeah, I definitely do think that the farmers should get more value for the amount of effort they put in.
Asking if we've been exporting chocolates.
Yeah, or like any other part, like it could be the cocoa beans, cocoa butter, cocoa powder. Have you done any exports?
Okay, if we're going to export anything, that's what we're going to export, not cocoa powder or cocoa butter, right? So for chocolate bars, we have exported to Kenya, and even though it's still in very small quantities, we are planning that by Q4 this year we should have larger orders. And this is because just the same way you have NAFDAC in Nigeria and your products need to go through NAFDAC certification, it's the same thing for Kenya. So you need to go through their Bureau of Standards. So the products are being tested, and once they are approved, then we can actually stock their supermarkets and begin to do volumes worth talking about. Then we also export to the US. We also export to the US under the brand of the Cross Atlantic Chocolate Collective. So the CACC is a collective of chocolate makers who are making chocolate where the chocolate is actually grown. So you have a lot of African members. For example, we have someone in Cote d'Ivoire, in Ghana, in Cameroon. These are all cocoa growing countries, and myself in Nigeria. We also have people from Trinidad and Tobago, Grenada, St. Lucia. So these are in the Caribbean. So we have that cooperative, and that's how we export to the US. So even though we don't export bars, we export the chocolate liqueur. It's completed over in the US and sold under the CACC brand name. So those are the two ways currently, and we hope that in the coming couple of years we'll be doing more numbers in terms of exportation, even though our main focus will be to sell in Nigeria. and in
Wow.
Africa. Is still Nigeria, because I was listening to, a conversation about chocolate, really, cocoa in general. And if we think about it really, right, we can generate enough demand within Nigeria to consume all the cocoa that we make, that we produce. So there's
Wow.
nothing, there's a lot of work that we need to do to drive consumption, right? To build that cocoa culture where, and I always say cocoa is beyond, there's more to cocoa than chocolate, right? You have lots of other things that you can do with cocoa nibs. You can incorporate that into your meal, because cocoa is actually a superfood, right? You can incorporate you can even do cocoa drinks, for children, instead of the sugar filled that we're already used to. You can actually make real hot chocolate and, build, as they are young, right? Build that cocoa drinking culture, so that in the next 5 years, in the next 10 years, we are consuming everything that we produce. We are processing it in country, consuming it in country, and exporting whatever excess that we have. This is as against importing all manner of sugar-filled cocoa produce. So we still have a lot of work to do, but I think that that's what the target should be: to increase local consumption and then to export any excess. So our main focus will always be to increase our market share within the country and export whatever is left of it. Yeah.
Wow. Well said. Nigeria, thinking local and global at the same time. That's beautiful. I was gonna ask as well. You guys are obviously doing your production in Abuja, right? Is there a particular reason why you have it there, or it's just where you're based, so you decided to do that?
Yeah, it's simply because that's where we're based, right? Even though, right, one of our values especially is responsible production, responsible consumption. So, as we grow, we have plans to establish sort of mini plants closer to where the cocoa is grown itself, so that that logistics cost, transportation cost is eliminated completely. And I don't think anything has to be centered in any one place. It's always better to produce closer to where it is consumed, and also work on transferring some of this knowledge to the farmers themselves. That's one of the the values of the Cross-Atlantic Chocolate Collective, which is to empower even the farmers, because this, I just spoke about increasing local consumption. It's not something that any one individual or any one company can do on their own, right? If you empower the farmers, right, to be able to learn how to produce, learn how to process for their own local communities there, right? That is how the work is going to get done. Imagine 350,000 farmers in Nigeria, and you're able to cover, even if it's just a quarter of that. That's where you can make impact. Compare that to me sitting in Abuja and trying to, develop that cocoa drinking culture. It's not going to happen as effectively, as quickly, as if you transfer that knowledge and empower the farmers themselves. So I think it makes sense, to at some point build these hubs of cocoa processing where it is grown. And I feel that that's where state governments can actually come in, right? Because the setup, I feel like if I as an individual can do it, imagine what a state government can do, right? For their own states, it's staggering the difference it will make, right? If state governments will focus on building up some, it doesn't even need to be a fancy. You saw the way our factory is now. There's nothing fancy about it. It's just like a cottage plant. Something similar in your place to make a produce that helps you utilize the cocoa you're producing. but it's not so expensive that your local community can't afford it. You get? I feel like to make some.
Wow. That's really interesting. And I mean, the last time I saw you was at your factory, but before that, I saw you at the GT Co. Food and drink. And it looked like your store was quite busy. So I wanted to get from you, for the purposes of other people, maybe in Nigeria that want to get into this food and drink space. Have you found any particular events or online channels very good for finding buyers and new customers, whether it's in Kenya, US, Nigeria, locally? Where have you found a lot of success in terms of finding new customers?
Okay, so I feel like the channels to access customers will vary depending on what your focus is as a business, right? So if you're focused on selling directly to customers, I feel like the online channels are really great, right? People have had a lot of success selling via social media, via websites. You just need a little training on how to optimize your ads, how to, I feel like there's a whole, should I say, process, a whole system that you need to learn, but that if you learn it, put in the work, you will find great success. You need to be able to define who your customer is, and then target your messaging to attract them. Let me put it that way. So the online channels are really great if you want to do direct to customer, but it has a limitation in that if you're doing direct to customer, it's not just about your products right now. It's also about the distribution. How are you going to get the product to the customer? So this is a challenge we faced at some point, because we like the direct to customer idea because for you to run your business efficiently, effectively, you need cash. And that's what the direct to customer business or the direct to customer model gives you. It gives you cash instantly because customers pay up, and then you can funnel it back into your business for more production and sales. But for us, it's difficult to ship because it's chocolate, and we don't really have the infrastructure in Nigeria to ship cold chain products direct to customer. So this is why we focus more on wholesale, right? And for wholesale, the best way for us has been to ship to stores, because the stores give you access to all their customers, right? That all the customers that walk into the store, you have an opportunity to show your products to them, right? As long as your products are on their shelves. So that's why we partner with stores to get our products closer, not directly, closer to the customers across the country. Another thing is that you also ship or transfer, let's say, customer service, because we are a very lean operation, right? We hire a particular number of staff to do exactly, a particular set of tasks. So we don't have anybody. Everybody is utilized maximally. So we don't have space to dedicate, one person to just customer service. We can't afford that, for our size. So, but working with stores means that you ship, you transfer the responsibility of customer service to them, because the customers then just pick up from the shelf and pay. You don't have to attend. Imagine if you want to get across to 5,000 customers in a month. We can't handle every single customer, right? We don't have the resources or the personnel to attend. The way it is when you're doing one-on-one sales. Consuming, you don't even have enough hours in 1 month to attend to 5,000 people and attend to them satisfactorily, right? So that's why working with stores is a great idea if you want to reach more people, right? So that's why we've partnered with stores, and the best way to sign up stores is to just go into the store and show your products and get signed up. Then for events are actually great depending on the space that you're in, right? For example, the trade house that we're working with to get our products into Kenya is called the House of Serengeti. And we met them at a trade show, something very similar to GTCO, where, you have vendors, but this was for agribusinesses, not food in general. It's mostly for people that were processing raw materials into finished products. So we met them there and we were signed up to them to help us with access to the East African market. So trade shows are also really, really important, right? And you will be able to find out more if you look out for NGOs. The NEPC, for example, House of Serengeti partners with the NEPC, and that's how they get access to manufacturers that are into agribusinesses. So there are some steps you as a business you need to take to have access to all these organizations and people. You just have to go to their offices and register yourself. Like we just walked into NEPC and registered ourselves as a business, right, that was looking to export. And the NEPC also helps you because that's their mandate, right, to get us exporting things that are not petroleum, right? So, and they would support you. For example, that factory was refurbished or prepared the way it is because it was a rundown school, right? But it looks nothing like a rundown school now. And we got a grant from NEPC to help us reach it. So sometimes we as businesses, you just need to walk into the offices, right? And make that contact. Same thing we did with BOI, right? We needed a lot of raw materials because, of course, the cocoa season is really short and you want as much as possible to stack up your raw materials so that when you're off season, you're not lacking the inputs you need for your processing. So we approached BOI and BOI approved the loan for us to buy raw materials. So yes, while you can wait for invitations for some of these events, you also need to just walk into the offices. You would have to Google, which agencies and organizations and NGOs are mandated to help out small businesses, agribusiness, and so on and so forth.
Wow. Well said. BOI, for those that are listening, is the Bank of Industry. But, there's a lot of juicy information here. So, guys, if you're listening, just pause, rewind, go back, listen again, because there's a lot of great stuff that's being said here. So I hope everyone's listening in. Okay, so just to kind of round off, because this has been a really great conversation, and I'm sure people are going to learn a lot. You have a sort of workshop / tour / tasting thing. How did you come up with this idea? Because this is the last time I met you. I was at your factory. I was making chocolate. I made my own chocolate. So this is really amazing stuff. And you got us to try different chocolate and, taste, explain what we're tasting and different flavors. It's kind of like wine tasting, but for chocolate. So can you tell us a little bit about that, how you came up with that idea?
Okay, so we had always wanted to do some sort of, an experience event where people could come in. But to be honest, I was just not, I in my mind, I wanted the factory to look so fancy. I wanted chocolate art on the wall. I wanted the doors to be replaced. I wanted everywhere to look just beautiful, Instagram perfect. So we were nowhere near there. And I said, nah, doing it. But thank God for Zeno of the Abuja Food Tour. You may know her from Instagram. So she approached us and she's like, can we do something together? Can we do? And, our initial reaction was, our factory is not good enough. And she was like, no, you don't understand that it's great. People, nobody's doing chocolate. Nobody is opening up their doors. Is like a secret, a closed thing, but that we should just do it and it would be great. So all thanks to Zeno, really, for sort of pulling us out of our shell and forcing us to do it. And when we did it, it was amazing. And people didn't even notice. Everybody was just focused on what they were supposed to be focused on, which is the actual chocolate, the experience, the making, learning about, how chocolate goes through, all the processes it goes through to get to chocolate, That's what they were focused on. Nobody noticed all the cracks in the wall, the unpainted places, the wooden doors and things like that. And that really made us happy. And if we didn't listen, and go with Zeno's advice, we probably would never have started, right? But after the first event, we've gone on to open the doors for a fee. And people come in, and when you ask them, how was it? They're like, mind blowing. Somebody said, this is the best thing I've done in Abuja. And nobody mentioned the doors, the ugly doors or the ugly windows.
That's so true though, because like as an entrepreneur, you're always like, oh, it's not perfect, I need it to be at this level before I do this. But like, when I came in, I was so happy I did it, because like you said, even though me as a food entrepreneur as well, I know the NAFDAC, I know the certain things, but experiencing another value chain, and the openness as well, like you said, because sometimes our culture, everyone's trying to hold the information back, and this is my thing. But like the fact that you open up your doors, you're like, this is the machines we use, this is how you make the chocolate, this is the ingredients. It was a really beautiful experience, and also the tasting as well at the end, and also I think it's also a good selling opportunity for you, because by the time I tasted a different chocolate, I was like, oh, this is the one I like, so I'm gonna get 2 of these, please. So yeah. Exactly, like you don't even need to tell us to buy anything, like we just want to buy it. So yeah, I would honestly really recommend anyone to do it, to reach out to Uzo and Loom Chocolate to do the tour, because it was amazing, and I'm sure it's gonna inspire a lot of other food entrepreneurs, to do the same thing with their own value chains, So yeah, it's really an amazing experience. So thank you for that. Okay, so last question before you share your social medias and all that kind of stuff. This is a bit of a funny question, but I just like to do it anyways. If you were to start your business again, what would you do differently? If it was just one thing, you can't choose more than one, but it's one thing that maybe if I had gone this way, I would have got there quicker.
I've thought about this question, not because anybody has asked me, but I think I asked myself this question one time, and I don't know if there's anything I would have done differently, right? I think that response is the same way I apply, the same, philosophy applied to my life, even beyond business, because I like who I am right now. I love the way my business is. We're growing. And I feel like where we are now is a result of all the struggles, all the pains that we experienced in the journey, and the joys as well. I love all of them. I embrace every single step of the way, So I don't think there's anything that I would have, anything I can think of that I would have changed. What would I have changed? Maybe I haven't thought about the question, well enough to answer it, but I think that I love the journey. I love, the pace. I love the lessons that we learned. I love even the response from people.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. It's been perfect. I have nothing but gratitude in my heart. Let me put it that way.
Wow, that's beautiful, and that's a beautiful answer. Honestly, like you would just do the same thing again, because you learn from the mistakes and ups and downs. It's part of the journey. So, and then also, what's next for Loom Chocolate? Like, what are your kind of expansion plans? What do you got in the pipeline?
We're looking to. We just finished a NAFDAC. Or rather, we're in the process of registering all our products. You would find that you see mostly 3 of our bars in the supermarkets, and that's because we have 3 of them registered by NAFDAC. But all the other ones are now in the process of being certified. And like, that's the next big thing, because you get a lot of requests saying, I love the salted cashew, but I can't find it in the supermarkets. I can't find it in Lagos. So registering it, getting that certification allows us to take all the products closer to the customer, and we can't wait to get those numbers and have them in the system. For us, that's like the next big thing, having all the flavors in Lagos, in Port Harcourt, in Kano, Calabar. That's what we're looking forward to next for us. Yes.
Amazing. Yeah, so wow, this is amazing. A lot of information. I'm sure people are going to be listening to this over and over again to really get all the information. But thank you for joining me on the podcast today. And yeah, I really wish you the best. I think it's great to see other food entrepreneurs processing, adding value, and having beautiful branding that you guys have as well. So it's really, really good to see. Can you share your social medias and websites or anything that so people can follow and reach out to you if they want to get your products?
Sure. So our website is loomchocolate.com. And our Instagram is at Loom Chocolate. Same thing with Threads, our Threads account at Loom Chocolate. We're not much of a Twitter company, but you would also find us on LinkedIn at Loom Chocolate. So yeah.
Amazing. Thank you so much. Thank you guys for listening. This is the Kadan podcast. We've just had Uzo from Loom Chocolate, and we'll see you on the next one. All right. Bye, Uzo. Have a nice day.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.